so much of this is angry, hateful nonsense. And it's on us to create the communities that we want our kids to grow up in. And those communities are kind and welcoming and inclusive, and they don't demonize people just because they're different.
We got to address the suburban women problem because it's real.
Welcome to the Suburban Women Problem, a podcast from Red, Wine, and Blue.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jasmine Clark.
I'm Rachel Vindman.
And you're listening to the Suburban Women Problem. We are now 2 weeks out from the election, and early voting is open in many states, including right here in Georgia. Today, we're talking about the swing state of Michigan with Kelly Dillaha, Red, Wine, and Blue's program director in Michigan. And after that, I'll get to share my interview with one of our favorite guests, Michigan State Senator Mallory McMorrow. But first, let's get into the news. What are we seeing 2 weeks out? And we were literally just talking about this in our chat.
I'm just going to ask you, this is what I'm going to ask you. I see you're drinking tea.
Yes.
Is it chamomile to relax you or something with straight caffeine?
I'm definitely caffeinating right now. And that is because we are straight up in campaign season and sleep definitely eludes me. And so I'm like,
if anyone is sleeping now, I'll have what you're having. Through the night sort of sleeping. I can always fall asleep because I'm exhausted, but do I stay asleep? Is it menopause or is it the election? We'll never know. I guess we'll know in 2 weeks. It's all like a total choose your own adventure.
It totally is. Like here in Georgia, we've got the reports out that we are breaking records, daily records of early voting. So to be clear, we started early voting on Tuesday, October 15th. So technically that's 1 day less than where we would have been from 2020 when we started early voting on a Monday. That said, daily records, we have been breaking records like every single day. It's like, oh, this is the most people that voted on a Sunday. This is the most people that's voted on the first day of early voting. Like everything, record here, record there. Everyone's super excited. They're like, yeah, we are killing this. But then on the other side, I'm seeing people that are like, everybody calm down and everyone, this is the worst thing that could be happening to us. We're not doing enough. There's not enough people voting. This is really bad for us. And I am like, oh my gosh, I feel like a ping pong ball. And I'm just like, I would love for us to equilibrate a little bit, recognize the small victories. Mm-hmm. Daily records of voting are small victories, especially when we're seeing lots of new voters. Let's also recognize that there have been lots of suppressive efforts here in the state of Georgia, and those things did not go away. Mm-hmm. And just because we are seeing record-breaking days does not mean that there are not Georgians out there that are feeling the weight of a lot of these suppressive laws. And so, yes, we do need to acknowledge that as well. Also, let's just calm down. I know it's hard. And I say that as I'm drinking my green tea because I don't get sleep because I'm constantly thinking about the election. But I do think that the truth is somewhere in the middle. And what I want to do is make sure that our messages are encouraging and not discouraging.
I couldn't agree more.
We have to find that. Yeah.
It's really important because, if you told me, hey, Rachel, I need you to do a plank for a minute. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can do a plank for a minute. No problem. But then if you're like, I'm going to need you to do a plank for 5 minutes right now. If you could just do that, I would freak out. I mean, because it's all a matter of perspective, but I could do 5 1-minute planks. No problem. Even in the course of maybe over 7 minutes or something I could do. And what we're trying to do is say, this is achievable. But sometimes when you start looking at all these numbers, it just starts to blur and let's just go ahead. We're not all statisticians. The most important thing that we are doing here, I think you highlighted it, is we can't make people feel discouraged. And I was really honored to be part of it was actually a throwdown challenge between our Trouble Nation groups and the Trouble Nation group in Colorado and one in Pennsylvania. They issued a challenge, who can get more women voters. And then
they threw in.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was really great. this is really just about getting out the vote right now. We're not trying to convert people. We're not trying to convince people. This is get out the vote. That's where we are. And so use your time wisely and also protect your peace, which
Correct.
is, we're just trying to like talk to the people who can vote and make sure they do vote, and don't make it harder than it needs to be right now. But if you start like all with the doom and gloom, that's going to make it harder. And I say that as someone who's like, oh, so what's the doom and gloom today? And
I mean, some people seek that stuff out, but like, so I'm a mom of a teenager, and she does sports. And I've talked about my daughter and her sports all the time. And one of the things I've learned about her is the coach that says things like, you're doing such a great job. Oh man, you really performed great in that game. You're playing some solid defense. You're really doing good. When they talk to her that way, it really tends to make her want to play harder and play more and just do better. The coach that is like, you could do so much better.
mm-hmm.
You're not living up to your potential. I know that you can do better. I expect so much more from you. When they talk to her that way, it tends to make her shut down and feel like she's not good enough, feel like she's not working hard enough, or none of her efforts are actually, good enough to her potential, or, and so while both coaches think they're motivating her, she's truly motivated by being encouraged and being told that she's doing great. And I think that is the message that Kamala Harris has for our nation. And I also think that is the message that we as Democrats need to have for Democratic voters, is that we are doing a great job, and we can only do better. We can only go up from here. So let's do that. Let's do all that we can. Let's encourage more people to go out and vote. Let's give the message to the people that this election is so important, and there's just this one thing that they can do. There's lots of things that they can do, but at least this one thing: go out and vote and encourage another person to vote. Like, I think that message is a lot better, in my opinion, than, oh my gosh, guys, we're failing horribly. We're losing.
Yes. Like, we only have 2 more weeks, guys. Let's just get it done.
Yeah.
We're all worried. We're all there. We're all stressed. I mean, because this means something. We're worried because we care, because we want it to work out, but not because we think we're going to lose, because we just want to not wake up the day after the election and think I could have done more.
So speaking of the election, all right, so let's talk a little bit about what has been going on the campaign trail. And I know we say this every week feels like a month, but like, Kamala Harris is here in Georgia. She was here on Sunday. She had a great rally, and she's also going to be here on Thursday in Gwinnett County with the Obamas. And I am so excited about that. As soon as I heard about that, I was like, oh yeah, this is exactly what we need. And people in Gwinnett have been saying, why hasn't she come to Gwinnett yet? And then like the moment they said that, like, they announced that she was coming to Gwinnett, and I was like, oh, she is.
Wow. Ask and you shall receive.
I know. It's like those positive affirmations. I mean, she's just doing a great job on the campaign trail. Her rallies are always so energetic, and they are in direct contrast to that other guy. And his rallies have just become more and more unhinged and weird. Between him, like, swaying to the music for like 40 minutes in Pennsylvania, and also the delusion that January 6th is now the day of love. There you go, Hallmark.
Dude is Delulu. I mean,
seriously, Delulu.
And it bothers me the way people continue to twist themselves into pretzels to justify voting for him. Yes. But I don't even care about listening to those people, because I know there are Trump supporters, maybe former Trump supporters, who saw whatever happened in Pennsylvania, that like dance sway thing. And he was like, I don't want to answer any more questions. Let's just listen to music, because he can't do it. And they know it. I mean, some might still vote for him anyway, but others, I happen to know people who texted me who said, I'm glad that I'm not voting, that I made the decision not to vote for this man. I'm like, good for you. So that was one of the craziest things I've ever seen, I have to say. Like, I mean, every day brings things that are crazy, but that was kind of a I don't know if you say high point or low point. I'm not quite sure. But, and then, you know, I mean, he said just nasty things. He said nasty things about Kamala Harris this weekend. Same old stuff, you know, putting down women. Same old, same old. There's nothing new.
It's literally his playbook. It's the only playbook he knows. And, you know, the more unhinged and the more incoherent he becomes, the more it makes me realize that his second in line of secession is we need to be paying attention to the words that he's saying too. You know, let's just be honest. Worst case scenario, if Trump prevails, he doesn't remain president for the next 4 years. And a JD Vance presidency is something that we should actually be talking about. And I know we just talked about being encouraging and all this stuff. So I know it feels kind of like I've just gone backwards. But I think what I'm trying to say is when we talk about what's at stake in this election, I think it's important that we also talk about the fact that JD Vance, who also has one of the worst track records of gaffes about women, or I don't even think they're gaffes, I think they're his true beliefs.
Yeah, no, it does. And it actually bears out in his approval, or rather, shall I say, disapproval ratings. I'm like, is this the person you want to be president? I mean, I've actually had that conversation with people, and I've encouraged them to have conversations with other people in their life. It's like, is this what you want? Because he's not popular. And I just want to say, do we want a president who doesn't even know how to order donuts? I mean, when I think of when he was like, whatever makes sense. Like, that is not how you order donuts.
Speaking of ordering donuts, this whole fake McDonald's thing that Trump did, like, again, weird. I'm sorry. First of all, y'all closed the McDonald's. So it's not even like he was taking actual people's orders. It was all staged. This man is a walking, like, I don't even know what it's like, a parody. Like, everything is a show. Like, it's like nothing is real. Everything is like, I can perform. Everything is a performance.
It is all about him and not about the American people. And I think the contrast there, I really liked some of the vice president's rallies recently and the things she's been saying, and even like playing Donald Trump's words, because that is really, we need more people to be forced to see and hear what he says.
So, for example, in his words, he says that he wants to defund public schools if they teach about slavery. A lot of people are familiar with my fight here in Georgia on making sure that we are allowed to teach AP African American Studies. And so this is real. This is not made up. This is a thing. This is literally on the conservative agenda to try to rewrite history and to try to rewrite or just completely erase teaching about slavery altogether. These are things that, so on the one hand, he's playing kitchen, he's playing McDonald's cook. And then on the other side, this man has an agenda that is very destructive. There's just so much that we could talk about. And, you know, the thing about it is, like, from week to week, I'm like, oh, we should talk about this and we should talk about that. But then I'm like, oh, well, we can wait until next week. And then by the time next week comes, like, a million other things have happened and a million other things have been said and done. But yeah, I think the ultimate message here is that a lot of elections, you have two people on the ballot and they have some contrast between each other, but they also have a lot of things that they're saying, you know, the same things on. And, you know, you really are truly having to like decide on, you know, whatever merits you decide you're going to decide between. This election, there is no comparison. There is stark contrast. And I think that we have plenty of examples of one side's platform, number one, looking at you, Project 2025, and then the actual candidates themselves and what that means for America and just like qualifications and things like that. And so I think that this election, I've voted in several elections in my life. And this one I can honestly say is one where the contrast could not be more clear. All right. So I think that was a good time to bring on our troublemaker for this week, Kelly.
Hi, Kelly.
Kelly is Red Wine and Blues Program Director in Michigan. Hi, Kelly. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I would love to hear about what's going on in Michigan. And, you know, the election is only 2 weeks away. So how are you all feeling?
I mean, we're feeling pretty optimistic, Team Michigan is, and there's a lot to be excited about. We have new voting options here in Michigan, and we've just started early voting for the first time ever. So we started in Detroit this last weekend, and there's been a station in Ann Arbor and in East Lansing. And then on the 26th of the month, we will be across the state for the first time. So
That's exciting.
Yeah, we've got the absentee ballot, so people can vote by mail or by Dropbox right now. So we have so many options to vote now, and that part is exciting. And we've had so many candidates coming to Michigan because we are a battleground state. So Vice President Harris has been here several times in the last week. And we also have a very exciting U.S. Senate race with a wonderful candidate named Alyssa Slotkin. So there's so much to be excited about on the ground.
We love Alyssa. Alyssa has been a guest on the pod, and Oslo is just your Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson. I mean, we love Michigan on the pod.
We really do.
I have to say, I always talk about Michigan because you guys started organizing the day after the election in 2016, and you know how to do it. I think that Michigan should not only I think you guys should run workshops all across the country for how to get it done. Yeah. I mean, that's where the whole, I'm going to book club, but really it was to organizing. That's Michigan. That's where it started. And I love Michigan. I think so highly of Michigan. Tell us, what do you think is, I mean, it's hard to say, right? But what do you think is the most important issue in this election for suburban women voters?
I think it is still reproductive freedom and reproductive health care. Even though in 2022, we passed Proposition 3 here, which was enshrining reproductive health care in our state constitution, it's still at risk. And that's at a federal level. And also we have a Supreme Court race this year here in the state. And that race is also very important in making sure that we have reproductive healthcare access for all. And so that still remains the top issue, I think, in the state. Mm-hmm. There's some other things, too, that are kind of bubbling up as important issues. And we hear about this as we're talking to women across the state. Ending gun violence has been top of mind after, of course, we've had the MSU shooting and the Oxford High School shooting. And so that tends to be a big issue that motivates women to join Red, Wine, and Blue. Supporting public education, of course, is a huge one. And I would also say LGBTQ plus allyship. Those are probably the big four that really drive women to come to Red, Wine, and Blue and want to learn how they can start organizing in their communities.
I love that. I appreciate that so much. And I think when I think about this election, I think about a couple of things. Reproductive health and reproductive rights is top of mind for me as a person who is technically still at the point where I could get pregnant. And also I have a child and I have a teenage girl, and I just can't even fathom how we've gotten to this place where she has less rights than I had at her age. And so that's top of mind for me. But second and very close is the gun violence issue, especially since the mass shooting that happened in Winder, Georgia. That is less than an hour away from my home. And, it's a neighboring county to me. And it just, every single one hits close to home for me because I have children, but that one really hit close to home because it was literally close to home. And so that's kind of what's bringing me out. So I know that everyone on, the podcast and just everyone listening has their reasons that this election is personal for them. So would love to hear you, Kelly, why is politics personal for you? And so how did that get you into the work that you're doing with Red, Wine, and Blue?
So I actually had a career in higher education before I started in politics.
Oh, me too.
I'm a sociologist, and I worked in marketing and recruitment for several different universities and colleges, and I loved my work. But I left because my mother had Alzheimer's, and she deteriorated very quickly and needed constant care. And her situation kept changing, where every time I would get her settled in housing that was appropriate, we would have to find different housing because her needs would change so quickly. And literally, we got to the point where my mother could no longer afford her disease, which is a horrible thing to say, but that's how we treat people in our country who have chronic illness and who are seniors. And so I left my career to take care of my mother in the last months of her life and settle her affairs after she passed. And I kept thinking about it as I was sitting there, in the hospital rooms or afterward, like, we just do not treat our seniors well. What can I do? And another local woman was starting a group here in Michigan, in Oakland County, where I live, and asked me if I knew anything about setting up nonprofits. Well, I didn't, but I said I was willing to learn. And the next thing I knew, it's been 8 years now. I helped form that group, which still exists in Oakland County. Has several thousand members in that group. And then that's how I found my way to Red, Wine, and Blue, because we were partnering with Red, Wine, and Blue on some events. I find that it's so important for me personally to use my voice, to speak out on the issues that I care about, and to use the experiences that I've had to help someone else not have to go through what I went through, not just with my mom. My family has had a lot of experiences with gun violence as well. And last year here in Michigan, I was able to give speeches across the state in support of a domestic violence bill because I myself am a survivor of a domestic violence situation that involved a gun as a child. And so I unwittingly became someone speaking up on the topic. But if my voice helps someone else not have to go through what I went through, if it saves a life, it's worth it. And that's what I love about the work that we do here at Red, Wine, and Blue, is that me, my team, when we're out starting conversations with women across the state, we are making change. We are building power together. We are making change on these issues that matter so much, not just here in Michigan, but across the country. And I've seen it firsthand. It's seen people's lives change when they start to get involved and when they start to speak out. And I love that kind of energy. And it's very transformative.
You just said something in those two answers that I think every single one of our listeners will relate to. Like, you touched on it all. You touched on parenting. You touched on caring for our parents as they age and navigating that process, which is difficult. Combining those voices is really, and teaching people how to amplify. It's what Red, Wine, and Blue does so well. And you have built just an amazing team and ecosystem of grassroots in Michigan and connecting people together in order to do that, to help everyone. What are some of the local races that people should be paying attention to in Michigan, and do they relate to some of these issues that you have addressed as being the most important?
One of the ones it's actually statewide is our Michigan Supreme Court race.
Yeah.
And the candidates that we are talking about are Justice Kyra Harris Bolden, who is up for re-election, and Kimberly Thomas, who's running for the other seat. Both of them support reproductive health care and are pro-public education. And that's so important because some of the court cases that have come through, and if the federal laws change, our backstop here in Michigan is our Michigan Supreme Court. Yeah. So that race is absolutely critical. Another race that's up for election, all 110 state house seats are up for grabs. We currently have a 2-seat Democratic majority in Michigan. It's good. Wish it was a little bigger, because sometimes even that 2-seat is not enough. And
Jasmine's like, what are you talking about? You have 2 seats.
Yes. Can't wait to get there.
It's great. It's great to have that majority, but even with the majority, we had a follow-up Reproductive Health Care Act that ended up being gutted a bit because we didn't have bipartisan support. It didn't have all the votes.
Yeah.
So those 110 state house race seats are very, very critical. And then finally, another one is school board elections. Yeah. We have over nearly 550 school boards across the state. They are all up for election. in some of those areas, we see extremism. Examples include policies that target LGBTQ plus kids. We've seen policies, book bans and the things that we've been talking about the last couple of years. But we also have a chance in Michigan to update our sex ed curriculum, which is horribly out of date. And we have seen an extremist group come into Michigan from the outside that's already stirring up trouble before that legislation even comes in. We've passed a lot of really great bills on these issues we're talking about, like gun violence prevention and supporting public education with funding. But there's so much more we still can do. And if we lose this majority, we're going to lose that momentum.
We got to keep all those flaming balls juggling all in the air at the same time. We can't let anything drop. And it's exhausting. It's a lot of work. I mean, like all of us in our respective states, we know, and it's like the situation's different, but it is really important. And you're doing the work because the important thing is that we just keep talking about it. When we get together and we emphasize this for people. And I just want to stress the Supreme Court elections in many states, Ohio is another one. It is critical because even if you pass laws that protect and there have been referendums that protect reproductive rights, you have to make sure that you maintain control, that you don't let the court get crazy. And we've seen it on the federal level and what can happen because it can change everything. So it's really important that everyone understands all the things again. But, we're women, we're moms, we're really good at juggling like all this stuff. And I think we uniquely can say, yes, we have this, but we have to focus on this too. And we have to, not let just that one thing become like the most important and lose sight of the other races, which are just as critical.
So I wanted to hear a little bit about this Roper's Romp to the Polls. So this sounds really fun. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
We were trying to think of anything to be unique, fun, so that it's just not another get out the vote event. And there is a whole craze across the nation right now of Roper Romps where people are dressing up as the character Helen Roper from Three's Company.
Oh my gosh.
Which was a 70s sitcom. So I know it's kind of a throwback, but
not at all. This sounds incredible.
People are showing up in curly red wigs. They wear caftans. They pile on a bunch of costume jewelry, and you just show up and look fabulous while you're doing Get Out the Vote.
Oh, this sounds amazing.
Often they're set up as a pub crawl. We did have cocktails and food, so it was fun. But what we were doing is really promoting people and using all of the steps of friend-to-friend organizing, which of course Red, Wine, and Blue is amazing at, and using our rally tool that we are teaching people to use nationally. And so each of the stops inside of our Roper Romp involved a step that you would take in rally. So creating the account, adding your friends and family, and then taking the actions to tell them about those important races that we were just talking about.
I love this. So fun. I was once told that Democrats have boring events and that's why people aren't excited to vote for Democrats. But lately I feel like a lot of our events have been super fun, unique, involving cocktails and just fun. And I appreciate that.
We've also tried doing banned book bingos, which have been very popular. We've also done a lot of craftivism this year. So what we'll do is we're teaching people advocacy skills while we're doing a craft. So we've done things like Rock Your Rights, where we paint rocks and talk about the upcoming Supreme Court election. We've made friendship bracelets.
Yes, I know. I've seen the bracelets. Yes.
They're quite the conversation starter.
Exactly. And that was what we were hoping for, is that when people leave the event, they'll have a little trinket that they can keep with them. And then people will ask, where did you get that? And then you can tell them about why you should be out talking to your friends about voting.
I love this. Thank you so much, Kelly, for joining us. And now we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll have my interview with State Senator Mallory McMorrow.
There are now less than 2 weeks until November 5th, and just a handful of votes could make the difference. So we're encouraging all of our listeners to sign up for Red, Wine, and Blue's Rally Your Squad. It's a fun online tool that helps you track which of your friends and family you've spoken to about voting, and it's actually improved voter turnout by up to 10%. To sign up, text the word RALLY, RALLY, to 59868.
Today, I'm joined by one of our favorite guests. She's a state senator in Michigan, and 2 years ago, she put suburban moms in the spotlight when a speech of hers went viral. Senator Mallory McMorrow, welcome back to the Suburban Women Problem.
So good to be back and continuing to be a suburban woman problem.
I know. I love when people are like, why do we call it that? And I'm like, let me tell you. So you actually joined us for our 50th episode celebration back in 2022, a few weeks after your speech about suburban women. Could you remind our listeners what that speech was about, and have your thoughts about suburban women changed at all going into this election?
For sure. So back in 2022, I woke up one morning to find out that a Republican colleague of mine had accused me by name of wanting to groom and sexualize kindergartners and wanting 8-year-olds to believe they were responsible for slavery in a fundraising email for herself. So she sent that out to supporters, really just smearing me with one of the ugliest things you can accuse somebody of. And just for context, this is a woman who served on the committee that oversaw the Larry Nassar investigations. So the Michigan State University gymnastics doctor who quite literally was a groomer, groomed and abused girls for years and years and years. So for her to just throw this out against somebody was beyond the pale. I gave a speech in response in which I repeatedly declared myself as a straight white Christian married suburban mom who knows that hate only wins when people like me stand by and let it happen. And I was very intentional in doing that. This was, at the start of the rise of Moms for Liberty and all of these groups that, particularly for white Christian women, I feel like Christianity has been used as a weapon to demonize and attack marginalized kids. And white women, have leveraged a lot of privilege to suddenly be telling other families and other kids how they should live and how they should look and what they should read and who they should love. And it was just, excuse my language, a bunch of bullshit. So what we know is that there are a lot of people who've been doing this work for a really long time, but white women are oftentimes the deciding voting bloc. White women put Donald Trump into office. So this was my call out to other people who look and relate to me to say it is on us to choose better. That resonated. It went crazy viral, that we are still talking about it 2 years later. And this is not the only conversation where we're still talking about it. It's deeply moving. And I think it really struck a nerve with a lot of people. Now, cut to 2024. Suburban women, I think we have started to really find our voice and our footing and our power. I got to participate on the White Women for Kamala Zoom call as a speaker. And in the middle of it, I know a friend of mine, a guy I used to work with, texted me. He was watching it live. And he said, hold on a second. Are you telling me that 160,000 white women are voluntarily on Zoom way after the pandemic for 4 hours? Like, Trump is screwed if this is really what's happening. So I think we're finally accepting that it's not enough. One of the things I said in that call was, this is not the time to start a book club. We have a lot to learn. I think as white women, a lot of us feel a lot of responsibility and guilt sometimes about the fact that we're late to a lot of these conversations, but now's not the time for that. Now is the time to get active. So I am excited about suburban women, particularly suburban white women and suburban women of all backgrounds finding each other and deciding, no, so much of this is angry, hateful nonsense. And it's on us to create the communities that we want our kids to grow up in. And those communities are kind and welcoming and inclusive, and they don't demonize people just because they're different.
Absolutely. And I love that you brought up that White Women for Harris Zoom call. And I, too, have always said the pandemic, there was a lot of bad that happened during the pandemic. But one of the things I loved was how we learned how to use technology to stay connected with each other. Right. And I wonder if we would have even been able to collectively get everyone together in any other form in 2024 had we not learned about these platforms during one of the worst times we've had to experience.
I love that thought. It was so ugly, but that was definitely a silver lining, because I think it was instinctual for a lot of people, right? Like, we've all had to be on so many Zoom calls,
Yes.
and now, like, let's use it for something good and not just another meeting.
Exactly. But as you said, this is not the time to start a book club. This is our time to act. So I want to ask, like, specifically, what should our listeners, what actions should they be taking right now? Like, what is the action that you meant when you said, like, let's do more than just the book club thing? Let's, like, really dig in.
So right now, there are days remaining in this election. And I say in the election because it's not until election day. People are voting right now. So in Michigan, absentee ballots went out last week. I know you're in Georgia. We've got people in North Carolina, all over the place. I think recognizing that people around the country in different states have already been voting and are continuing to vote. So right now, I think the most important thing that anybody can do is sign up for direct voter contact. That can be canvassing, going out, knocking on doors. That can be text banking. That can be phone calls. And that can be a little uncomfortable for a lot of people, but it's like anything. I promise you, it is like going out for a run for the first time and you're uncomfortable and you're wheezing and you're like, I am too old for this. I wish I had done this in my 20s. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. And you start to realize that it's just a conversation with people who live in your state, who love your state, who want the same things that you do. And I know a lot of people, love things like postcard parties. That's a great way to start in activism. It's probably too late right now because with mail delays and the fact that people already have ballots in hand. So I would encourage people, get a little bit uncomfortable, sign up for a direct voter contact shift. I am a huge fan of down ballot, as I know that you are. So find a state house candidate in your state that you really like. If you're not sure where to start with your state party. And just sign up for something. Mobilize.us is a great website if you just want to put in your zip code and start searching around. There's all kinds of volunteer opportunities, and find the one that connects to you and get out there. Even if you do one shift between now and election day, that is so much more than most people ever do. And as well as I do, a lot of these local races are won by hundreds of votes. So you could be the person who makes sure that somebody on the other side of a door knows that in a place like Michigan, we have 9 days of early voting now for the first time in state history. That's so exciting. A lot of people don't know that. So that could be the thing that gets somebody to vote who might be a busy mom who thinks, I would love to vote, but what if my kid gets sick on election day and something goes sideways and I just can't get out? Well, she can do it early, and that's great.
I loved everything that you just said, especially the part about the fact that a lot of these elections, especially down ballot, are determined by just a few hundred votes. I can attest to that because that is literally how I won in 2018 by 250 votes. And so
250 votes. Oh,
that is why those conversations matter, because there might be a person who wasn't planning on voting that is now voting, and your conversation could have made the difference. And so you did also mention Michigan, and we've talked about Michigan as a success story for what's possible when Democrats win up and down the ballot. So I'd love to hear more about how things are going in Michigan. You mentioned like y'all are now having like early voting for the first time. That's exciting. We've had early voting in Georgia for a while, but yeah, like how are things going there?
It is great. So Democrats took a Democratic trifecta. So that is the state Senate, the state House, and the governorship in 2022 for the first time in nearly 40 years. And a lot of that was anchored in the state Senate where I serve. The state Senate, I think a lot of people look at Michigan and they think, oh, that's a blue wall state. But the state Senate had been controlled by Republicans since 1984. So we were stymied from being able to pass so much legislation. And really, for decades, the best that Democrats could do on the state level in Michigan was really prevent bad things from happening. We couldn't really be proactive. But since taking a Democratic trifecta, we have radically expanded access to voting. We talked about 9 days of early voting. We now have no reason absentee, so anybody can vote by mail. We have drop boxes guaranteed for every 15,000 residents, so just making them more widely available. And we've already seen absentee ballot turn-in rates in Detroit, which historically has lower voter turnout than other areas of the state for a wide variety of reasons. But absentee ballot turn-in rates are through the roof right now because, shocker, if you make voting easier, more people participate. It's incredible. We have also repealed our 1931 abortion ban. We've expanded our state Civil Rights Act to explicitly protect LGBTQ Michiganders at a moment when other states are trying to legislate them out of existence. We raised more than 100,000 families out of poverty by raising the earned income tax credit. We passed sweeping gun violence prevention legislation, including enacting a red flag law, which was my first bill ever signed into law. It took 5 years that I was working on. We have affordable housing funding on an annual basis for the first time in state history. We have the Midwest's strongest clean energy policy that we're going to start enacting within the next few years. And I could go on and on and on forever, but it has been so exciting. And I think something that we took very seriously as Democrats, taking majority for the first time, is we don't know how long this will last. Michigan is a swing state. It is a battleground. We knew that heading into a presidential, especially if Trump was running, he was going to focus a lot of time and energy here. And he came into Detroit yesterday and basically called Detroit a dump, which is a wild strategy for trying to win votes in a state. But we knew that we had to show people what it was like in a very real, tangible way to give people a reason to keep voting with us and for us. So the argument that I've been making, especially as we think about the top of the ticket, is at a moment when Congress has been unable to pass anything, Michigan can be the example to show people this is what it can be like if we elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and a Congress and a Senate that support these policies that we are enacting in a place like Michigan. So down ballot matters, y'all. I know a lot of people talk about down ballot as the bench. I hate that because it implies that your job doesn't matter and you're just waiting for a promotion. I like to think of down ballot as the foundation. You need a strong foundation to be able to get any of these policies across the line. And we're doing it. And it's exciting.
I love that. I love the analogy of it being a foundation because it is. And it is very important. And with so many laws or with the Supreme Court pitching things down to states, it is truly important.
Oh, yeah.
And so people need to understand that it's not just about what's happening at the presidential level. It really does boil down to what's happening. What is your county doing? What is your state legislature doing? So you wrote a book.
I did.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That book's coming out next year. Could you tell our listeners about it?
Sure. It comes out March 25th, 2025. It is available for pre-order now. It is called Hate Won't Win, Find Your Power and Leave This Place Better Than You Found It. And it's an interesting book. It's kind of a mix of half memoir, mostly just to tear down the idea that I was anyway special. I had no idea what I was doing. I Googled how to run for office. I have no background in politics or speech writing. And I worried that as a lot of people saw my viral speech, they may have thought to themselves, well, that's great, but I could never do that. So there's a little bit of kind of tearing down how I got here. I talk about giving birth during the pandemic, becoming a mom for the first time, and all of the lack of supports that we have in this country for childcare and for working moms that were just laid bare during the pandemic. But then the second half of the book is what I am most excited by. It is a very practical step-by-step guide for any person who looks around and says, I want to get involved. I want to make a difference. I have no idea where to start. So this is not the people who are going to drop everything and run for office. This is, I want to figure out how to better advocate, maybe at my city council meeting. Maybe I don't even know where to advocate. So there's exercises. There's a workbook in the back about understanding who represents you and where and what they do. There's a chapter about how to write a compelling story that actually makes a difference, understanding who your audience is. There's a chapter about understanding your influence. Do you know every single one of your neighbors within a 3-block radius? And if not, that's a really powerful group of people to tap into. So there's a lot in there. I'm really excited. My hope is that people get it and they use it as a guide, and then they start to share out what they're learning and what they're doing so that everybody can find their power and find their people. Because none of us can do this alone. And I know there's a lot of people out there that want to do more. So the timing is very intentional. It's after the election. It's after the inauguration, because I'm going to be working my butt off, as I know you are, every single day until election day. But then what happens next is on us. And I know a lot of people think, oh, this is the most important election of our lifetimes. That's what we're always told. And if I just vote for this person, it's going to fix everything. And then we get frustrated when everything isn't fixed because we have to do the work. So this is for when the dust settles, when no matter what happens, we've kind of figured out where we are and you're looking for, what do I do next? I hope you pick up this book. So Hate Won't Win, available for pre-order now.
I love that. Find your power, find your people. That's powerful. I love that. All right. So Mallory, it's been great talking to you today. And before we let you go, we like to give our guests some rapid fire questions. So you ready?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready.
All right. So you were a speaker at the DNC this year, and I was actually also there as a delegate. What's the most inspiring message you've heard at the convention?
The most inspiring message I heard was just hope. My goodness, we survived a pandemic. We survived the insurrection. The country has been at its brink. And I think what I saw at the convention was people were waiting in long lines and nobody cared. Everybody was so happy and inspired and connecting with people around the country. And that I didn't realize how much that had been missing from my life until I found it at the DNC.
Joy was definitely a central theme the entire time I was there. All right. So what's your favorite local fall treat in Michigan?
Oh, fall is all about apple cider and donuts, and it is a hot topic of conversation. Which place has the best donuts? I love traveling the state and trying all of the cider and donuts. So if anybody wants to come to Michigan and, I don't know, knock some doors, and I'll take you out for cider and donuts.
Do you have a favorite donut flavor?
I love the apple cinnamon flavor, like right when it's out of the oven. They come in the little 5-packs. Oh, they're so good.
That sounds delicious. All right. Next question. What have you been doing for self-care going into this election?
I've been in this job for 6 years now. This is the first year where I have really set my own boundaries in my calendar I want to go to yoga 2 days a week. I know the class that I like, and my staff is so supportive, and they're finally like, okay, like this is a window where we will not schedule her, because in these jobs and as moms, suburban women, we are pulled in all different directions 24 hours a day. And if you don't block out an hour for yourself and tell everybody else in your life, this is my hour, leave it alone, it's never going to happen. It is, our nature to give our time and energy to everybody else, no matter what they need. So I do that, and I've picked running back up again, and it's great. Just running around the neighborhood, listening to music, not listening to a podcast. I will say that's the one thing, like when you make this time for yourself, don't invade that time with podcasts about politics. It's going to be there when you get back. Give yourself an hour.
Yes, although we do encourage people to listen to the Suburban Women Problem, but not while you're doing that.
Not while you're doing yoga.
So where can our listeners go to learn more about you and your work?
I am all over social media. I'm spending less time on Twitter because it is not healthy, but I am on Threads and Instagram at Mallory McMorrow, MALLORY MCMORROW. And you can follow along. I've teamed up with a woman named Brooke who started an Instagram account, Moms for Michigan. We are running a 30-day democracy challenge between now and the end of the election, where we're doing one prompt every day for people who say, again, I want to get involved. I have no idea where to start. There's too many options. Michelle Obama told us to do something, but I don't know what to do. So check it out. Brooke and I are posting one challenge a day, and we hope you participate.
I love that so much. That's so awesome. Thank you, Mallory, for joining us today on the podcast.
Thank you. Always happy to be here.
Welcome back, everyone. Always great to hear from Mallory and our special Michigan episode today. I'm just kidding.
I know.
But,
I love this.
It's great to talk about Michigan. I think always, because again, they have done some incredible things. And what they've done has been to the credit of so many women, so many badass women
Absolutely.
at all levels, up and down, whether it's, from Gretchen Whitmer to, moms like standing up and like making sure that the extremists were off the school board and everywhere in between. Like I said, Jocelyn mentioned, and then, Mallory McMorrow, who wasn't afraid. She was our guest on our 50th episode. And that was because she had just given that speech of like, I'm not going to let you spread lies about me and let that go unchecked. And if that is not the moment we are still in it in this country, like, I don't know what is. Like, we're going to push back on the lies, and we will continue to do so until you figure out we're not buying what you're selling. Maybe some people are, but it's not going to fly with the rest of us. There are not two sides to the truth. There is only one truth, and you will not say these things and not face consequences.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's just, I think bringing all this stuff together, like women, we are really good at just empowering each other.
Yeah.
And that empowerment has the potential to like literally move mountains, like what happened in Michigan recently. And yes, they do have a small majority, but the point is like they showed that there is a recipe for getting things done and moving things in the right direction. Mm-hmm. And so I love that, today's episode is all about Michigan because I truly do think they are a model for what can happen.
Yeah, no, they absolutely are. Mm-hmm.
You do that work. And so I think now's a good time for us to transition to our Toast to Joy. And also we want to suggest one easy action everyone can take right now. So today's action is to vote early. You never know what might come up on November 5th, so early voting is a great way to make sure nothing keeps you from the ballot box. So if you live in one of those states where you have early voting, use it, please. All right, so now let's talk about our Toast to Joy. Rachel, what's yours this week?
My Toast to Joy this week is to the people in my life. I'm not going to name everyone, but this is like an Academy Award acceptance speech. Everyone who's helping me stay sane in these next few weeks. And it's important that we stay connected and remember why we're doing this. I don't think any of us are forgetting why we're doing this, but we remember that we need to take time to care for ourselves as well and take a break because we're down to the last bit, but you don't have to spend every moment like dwelling on it and obsessing about it. And sometimes I need people in my life to remind me of that. And it also kind of fills your cup. So when you go do the stuff that you can, that you're not depleted and that you have the energy to get out there and keep going.
I agree with that. I can find myself during campaign season spending pretty much the first half of my day at my professional, like full-time job. And then the entire second part of my day, plus my entire Saturday and my entire Sunday doing campaign things. And every now and then I have to say, Jasmine, it's okay to give yourself 2 hours. That's you. Like that belongs to you. It's not selfish. And to your point, it's okay to fill your cup sometimes so that you can pour out and do everything that you're doing on the campaign trail. And I'm not going to lie, there is some guilt associated with, taking moments to myself, but I have, and nothing has imploded. And I actually feel better for it. Like I actually feel better. So, that wasn't going to be my Toast to Joy, but I think I'm going to make it my Toast to Joy. And that my Toast to Joy is to making sure that we are all filling up our cups. Remember when we hold that long note, every now and then someone's got to take a breath so that you can come back in and hold the note, and let's continue to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, both mentally, physically, and, emotionally. Those relationships matter. And I am so excited. Y'all, it's Monday, and normally on a Monday, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't feel like doing anything. But I actually feel good because this weekend I did say, hey, I'm gonna give myself 2 hours to do something that I want to do that has nothing to do with my job and with the campaign. And it was 2 hours. It wasn't much, but the hours that I did give to myself, I think have rejuvenated me in a way I didn't even know I needed until I did it. So
good for you.
That's my toast to joy. And with that, thanks so much for everyone for joining us today. And we'll see you next week on the Suburban Women Problem.
The Suburban Women Problem was created by Red, Wine, and Blue. Our producer and editor is Amy Thorstensen, our project manager is Lindsay Quist, and our editorial assistant is Abigail Martin. For more information about upcoming events and trainings, or to learn more about Red, Wine, and Blue, follow us on social media or at www.redwine.blue.